Hello, this is John Griffiths in what's the last of the series of films that I'm making about books which would be of interest to people working in planning or more generally interested in advertising. And the last series is about books which are written by creatives about the coming up with ideas and the creative process. So I'll start with the earliest of these, and certainly one of the greatest, and this is a technique for producing ideas by James Webb Young. So it's been out a long time. James Webb Young, one of the people involved at the in J. Walter Thompson, probably 40 or 50 years ago. And it's got a foreword by Bill Bernbach, which gives some idea of its pedigree, and it's a brilliant way of explaining what the creative process is and how creatives get ideas. It's so useful actually that it's of use to anyone who wants to come up with ideas, so I highly recommend it. I move on from that to the book of Gossage. Howard Gossage was a revolutionary creative in his time, and this is a book of some of his writing and his papers with an account of his life, which was produced a few years ago. Gossage is important because of the way in which he tried to take on scientific advertising, the idea that the AIDA model, sequential processing, which is that you have to knock information into people's heads, and he was resolutely opposed to this. He and Bill Bernbach led a response to that whole wall of advertising, but there's really the rise of account planning, first in London and then spreading around the rest of the world, which provided some counter at least to this over-rationalized view of advertising. But Gossage is a very important figure. A book which an awful lot of people will know, one of probably the most popular books about how creatives work, and this is Hey Whipple Squeeze This by Luke Sullivan. Great read because it explains how creatives get their ideas and is really useful, particularly for junior creatives. A more recent one is Made to Stick, which is by Chip and Dan Heath, and the idea in this is that it's what makes a good idea, what makes an idea travel. And because the ideas that from Gossage and Whipple are much more advertising centric, this is really looking at how content, what makes an idea good and might travel through media in a much broader way. Then we come on to a book which has been a bit of a bestseller. It actually broke right outside of advertising. A lot of other people bought it as well, by Paul Arden of Saatchi's. It's not how good you are, it's how good you want to be. And very readable, great thinking about creativity. And I finished with a book in the sequence here called Predatory Thinking by Dave Trott. There's also another one here, Creative Mischief. Dave Trott has blogged quite a lot, so his writing is very accessible to people. And I would be neglecting my duty if I didn't also mention Hegarty on Advertising, Turning Intelligence into Magic, and then Hegarty on Creativity, There Are No Rules, which came out in April of 2014. Now, going through this whole sequence, these books are very accessible in getting you to think creatively, mainly because the ways in which creatives solve problems is by either understanding the product very well, understanding people very well, or understanding context very well. And so all of these could be recommended, not only as accounts of how famous advertising was come up with, but as to how you crack creative problems. So I'd recommend all of them. I have to finish with a plug though for 98% Pure Potato, because the whole point about doing these series is to encourage people to get behind the book, which we're still crowdfunding at the moment. This book is called 98% Pure Potato, and it is nearly funded, but you can still get your name in the back if you pledge for it. It's about the beginnings of account planning, a discipline which did so much to make sure that the advertising that was produced was relevant and actually related to the people who saw it and wasn't simply a piece of creative indulgence. So 98% Pure Potato, please get your pledges in, and thank you for paying attention.